Okay, hello everyone. So welcome to this design doc session for about Devdoso. Yep. So it's really great to see a lot of faces over here. So yep, let's start discussing about design doc. Okay, so I think most of you have already familiar with the design doc. Some of you might have also have written it before. So we will start with the definition of a design doc. What is basically a design doc? So a TDD is basically nothing but a document that outlines the technical direction and design decisions and also the implementation details of any of the feature or like any system which you want to create. Uh, and then the purpose of this design doc is basically you can think of design doc as a blueprint where it provides developer and other stakeholders or the technical direction and also the design decision and implementation detail of the software system and feature. So TDD also document the logics behind the design choices and also ensure that there is a clear understanding between the teammates and also the various stakeholders. So to add into this, also it defines system architecture and design details. So which also helps to facilitate the future maintenance of the design doc and also regarding the features update and also about the scalability. So we will discuss more about why we need design doc, how we can write a design doc, and when we can write it, and also about some of the lifespan of a design doc in more detail in upcoming slides. At the end, we will also walk. I'll also walk you through some of the examples which we have in Mercari about the design doc. I'll show you guys various different examples. For example, I know like some of you have a background in machine learning, some of you have background in client engineering, also some of you as joining as a backend engineers. So there can be some differences in the template for each of these platform, but more or less the concept of design doc is same. So let's move on to the next slide. Why do we need a design doc? So first thing first, to ensure a clarity and communication. So the basically a design doc serve as a common reference point for all the team members about a feature or a new system. So suppose if your team is has been assigned for a new feature to develop, so we can create a design doc for that, and then design doc will serve as a common reference for everything we will discuss about that feature regarding the development of that feature. And also, design doc also mentioned about the requirements. It makes sure that requirements are clear. Like, suppose there is a feature, and then there, of course, there will be some spec and design about that. So when you write the design doc, then you also make sure that all the requirements are pretty much clear for you, and then based on that, you design your design doc. Uh, and then also we define the roadmap for development. So because design doc is supposed to be a blueprint for the your implementation roadmap or development roadmap. So it defines how you're gonna proceed for your implementation or like the development of that feature. So you can define the architectural design of the overall feature and also define the various components, interaction between them, and also you can write the technical details. So third thing is risk mitigation. So it also helps to find potential risks and challenges early in the phases when you write the design doc. Because suppose when you have some complicated or like big project or feature to deal with, and sometimes when you don't go with the design doc and you just jump into the development first, then you might face some technical issues later on. For example, like if you're developing a feature and then at the end of the development you realize that, oh, this is something which is not feasible to do, right? So that will be a big step back, because that will you have already developed a lot, but now you cannot do further. So that's why design doc comes in a picture where you plan the overall development, you plan the roadmap for yourself, And then in that, you can see, okay, you do some kind of investigation early while writing the design doc, and you can find out some if there is some technical constraint which will stop the which will block the development, or some is there some issues which something is not feasible for some of the spec or some of the feature. So you can find those risks very early when you write the design doc. Also, there is one risk you can avoid is when you if suppose there is a deadline for the feature, you want to release it on a specific day. So when you write a design doc, so you get an overall picture like how much time it will take, the overall development. You will get a rough estimation. So you can, if suppose the estimated time is not meeting the deadline, then you can notify the uh, owner of that feature that this is not possible, might not be possible within the given time because of your estimation. So this kind of risk you can mitigate. So this is why like design doc comes very handy before development. So another thing is documentation. So as I mentioned before, you can think of design doc as a reference doc throughout the development. So you can refer to it. All the team members can refer to it, and you can think of it as a single point of reference for everything you do about the development. And also it helps a lot with delivering with quality, because when you write a design doc, then after writing it, then you also get some feedback and review from various stakeholders. Like you get feedback from product managers, other engineers as well, QA members as well. So because of you've gotten a lot of feedback, you have improved your design doc. So it will basically improve the development speed going forward, because in the design doc you mentioned about the development plan and implementation details and architecture and everything. So when you start writing the code, when you start doing the development, then you will have the overall picture how you're going to proceed it, right? So in this case, it will help a lot when you start doing the development, because you will have the overall picture, and also it will improve the code review quality, because other stakeholders are also aware of how why you wrote the code like this, because they have seen the details, the technical details in the design doc. So it will help the code review quality as well. So in this case, overall, like when you deliver the project, then you will deliver with a better quality. Okay, so let's move on to the when. Yep. So basically, the first step is the ideation, when a product manager can come up with the idea or a feature or a project. It's not necessary to be a product manager itself. It can be an engineer as well who can come up with some idea about improving some system or something like that. So the first thing is basically defining the idea and come up with the spec for that. And then we finalize the spec and design for that. So after we have the spec and design, we can start writing the design doc. And once we complete the design doc and get all the reviews on the design doc, then we can start on the development after approval of the design doc. So this is basically how the flow goes when we talk about the development from the scratch, from ideation to development. Okay, so let's talk about the process of design doc. So as I mentioned, first thing is the ideation, basically discussion. So we incorporate some insight and data, and based on that, we create the idea, and then we come up with the spec and design, and then we start writing the design doc based on whatever spec we have, and then we get review on our design doc from other stakeholders, and also from the domain owners. And after the feedback, if it's need to be updated, then we update the spec or the feature, and then again write the design doc, update the design doc, and again get the review. And once we have the final review, everything is looking good, then we can start on the coding part. Okay, so let's move on to the next part. So this is about the lifespan of a design doc. So so initially you write, I mean, when we start writing the design doc, so for a smaller project, it's okay. It's not necessary to write a draft version. You can just create a straightforward, uh, complete design doc and get it review from the stakeholders. But most of the time, when we have a very large project, very complicated project, then we start writing the design doc with a draft version first. And basically we write the draft version, which basically cover all the overview, and then we share that with within our teams to get the review from them. So once they do the review, and then we keep on updating based on the reviews and feedbacks. And once we have like the teammates approval, then we basically find a stable version of the design doc. Then we get the review from the wider audience, like cross teams or different domain owners, or maybe the architect teams as well. So, and then we get the review from them, and if there is a feedback, then we incorporate and update the design doc again. So this is how basically it happens until we get the approval from everyone who should be approving it, the design doc, who basically are the stakeholders. And then we keep on we can, after the approval, we can jump onto the development. But if needed, even in between of development, if needed to be this design doc needs to be updated, then we also update it and uh, maintain it for the learning purpose as well. So one example is like design doc also can be referred even after the whole development and everything is done, because suppose if there is a for sometimes if suppose there is a feature for which we have completed the development and designed on everything, but in future we might want to add on something on top of that feature, right? So sometimes we come up with a version one. I mean, suppose this feature is MVP, and then later on we want to develop a new version of that feature. So this design doc comes very handy when finalizing the spec for the new version, and also writing the design doc for this new version. So this is why like it's really necessary to be to update the design doc to its like to up to date, to keep it up to date. Okay, so let's talk about how do we write the design doc. So basically, these are the basic steps, but I'll walk you through some more details, like how do we write in Mercari for different platforms. So the first thing and most important part is gathering the information, gathering the requirements. So you have to start understanding the project requirements first, and to make sure that you understand the goals of that project. Also, what are the non-goals of that project, and because this is the first thing which will go in your design doc. What is going to be the objective of this design doc? And then second thing is defining the scope. So it's very necessary to you have a clear picture. You mention the you have a clear picture, and you clarify what exactly is going to be the scope of this in feature, and what is going to be out of the scope of this feature. So, and the third thing is the outlining the structure. So in this one, we plan the structure of the technical design doc, like basically the organizing it, what sections you're gonna write, and about the basically, for example, introduction, uh, and then architectural overview, design details, testing strategy, deployment strategy, and everything. So basically, you provide a over like what are the basically the highlights of this design doc going to be. And another thing is the architecture. So you basically going to define the implementation details, and also the architecture design for your feature or system. What is going to be, you're going to define the components of the architecture if required. And then also, if you can write some, you can mention about the interaction, how those components going to interact with each other. Those part will also come under the architecture section. And the next one is including some visuals. So it's also really important to include some visuals if possible. So for example, creating some visuals about the use case, and also creating some design about the, data flow diagrams, or like some class diagrams, some sequence diagrams, which will help reviewers to understand the system more clearly. So next is about the release plan. and deployment plan basically. So you also mentioned, I mean, it's also recommended to mention about the uh, how the release going to be, when it's going to be, what is the plan for that, if there is a feature flag strategy for this or not. So this information can also be mentioned in the design doc. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So basically design doc can be different for, I mean, the template and the process can be different for each teams. And design docs may be required before implementation of some feature, but it's not like necessary to be written, right? So it's basically depends on the team to decide if they need a design doc for any feature or not. But most of the time, we do write the design doc. But if suppose if the feature is very small, then in those cases, we might not need it. So basically, it depends on the team, and it's their decision to make sure that if they need a design doc or not. So, and design doc needs to be approved by either the tech lead of the team, or sometimes if suppose the feature includes some other domain, uh, it also impacts some other domains. So in that cases, we also need to get the review and approval from the cross teams. Right? And also the templates might be different for each of the team. The process might be different for each of the team. So even if your team does not require a design doc, you can write one for yourself for like your learning purpose whenever you want. Like, yeah. Yep. So I think, yeah, that should be all. Thank you so much for your time. Yep.